The story I'm about to share is an eerie account of experiences I've told countless times over my life. I have recounted this story to my family, friends, school faculty, the police, you name it. However, it often gets dismissed, which is tragic considering it involves real people who have been missing for a long time. So it started back in the fall of '86, around Halloween time. I was just a 12-year-old kid living in Thorntown, a small community smack dab in the middle of Indiana. It was an incredibly quiet town, with most residents familiar with one another. There was a lot of space for exploring, which was something I liked to do a lot then. One particular place that my friends and I would often bike or walk around were these abandoned trains and train tracks that went through and left town. There were a lot of creepy stories and rumors about ghostly appearances around these places, which always made them more spooky. Some were very real though, and hard to ignore, especially the ones involving children that had actually gone missing. The town was in hysteria about these cases, and none of them had been solved. One late afternoon, I was hanging out with a close friend and a neighbor named Sarah. A girl my age, I was too shy to tell I had a big crush on. We were sitting on my front doorstep chatting after biking around the neighborhood for a bit. She asked if I had been hearing a train passing through during the late hours of the night. I laughed dismissively, knowing well that the trains had been decommissioned for quite some time, and we were familiar with the urban legends associated with them. Despite this, Sarah's persistent and slightly irked expression indicated that she was not joking, and I soon realized the seriousness of her question. I reassured her I hadn't heard anything, finding it odd since I lived so close to the tracks myself. However, Sarah persisted, sharing her distressing experiences of unsettling visions and a sense of being haunted for the past few nights. Each time, it apparently began with the sound of a train horn. The change in her demeanor over the past few days was evident, her usual vibrant energy replaced by utter sadness. I couldn't shake off the feeling of concern, hoping passionately that whatever was troubling her would soon go away. Nonetheless, it weighed heavily on me to acknowledge that our last interaction would be exactly that, the last, as she, too, vanished without a trace that very night. The day that followed remained unforgettable, marked by the intense terror and heartbreak emanating from Sarah's distraught parents and the renewed sense of dread enveloping the entire community with another child gone missing. I found myself in a state of shock, struggling to comprehend the gravity of the events unfolding. Throughout that day, I scoured the tracks and trains on my bike, searching desperately for any sign of her, but to no avail. Instead, all I encountered was the haunting echo of her words from the night before as I gazed down those deserted tracks. A sense of guilt crept into me, feeling partly responsible for not fully listening to what she was trying to convey. Well, later that same night, I was jolted awake from a deep sleep by the sudden blare of a horn, possibly the very same one that Sarah had mentioned. Rising from my bed, I made my way to the window overlooking our backyard and the abandoned tracks beyond. Peering outside, I observed smoke billowing in the far distance, signaling the approach of a train headed in our direction. As the horn persisted, the dense fog and smoke gradually enveloped the surroundings, creating an unsettling and ghostly atmosphere. Suddenly, a faint voice echoed my name from behind. Gabriel. I spun around swiftly, only to find emptiness greeting me. I stood petrified. The voice resembled Sarah's, which left me with an unsettling feeling and sensation I was being watched. I called out to her, but all that replied was the relentless sound of that train horn approaching closer. Acting on instinct, I shouted frantically and sprinted as fast as I could to my parents' room. But upon bursting in, I was met with a stark emptiness. No bed, no dressers, nothing remained. The windows began to glow with an eerie light, accompanied by the dense smoke encircling the surroundings. With the train drawing nearer, the lights intensified, blinding me until I could no longer discern anything amidst the choking clouds that engulfed me, leaving me coughing uncontrollably. Moments passed, and as the mist lifted and the bright lights dimmed, a haunting chorus of children's cries filled the air, accompanied by the unmistakable odor of burnt coal. Before I knew it, I was standing within the confines of a train, sensing the vibration beneath my feet as the cabin became more visible. I must be trapped in some sort of nightmare, I thought, though its realism left me uncertain. The cries persisted, accompanied by the unmistakable terror etched on their faces, arms extending from the confines of their cages. My heart raced uncontrollably as I surveyed the room filled with imprisoned and restrained children. The clinking of chains resonated with each of their movements. I wondered if Sarah was here. I called out to her, but impossible to discern anything from the hellish ambience enshrouding me. Then, I saw a face I recognized from the missing children posters. Anna, a girl who had gone missing in '79, about 7 years back or so. Her face, though, expressionless, as if her soul was completely drained from her. In an instant, a ghostly shriek reverberated through the train carriage, making my heart skip a beat. The wails of the children around me escalated as the train began to screech to a halt. I instinctively covered my ears, trying to block out the intensifying noise. Amidst the chaos, Anna's voice barely reached me, repeating, "You can't escape." She was just saying it over and over while growing louder, with the other children now echoing the same words. My eyes brimmed with tears, and my panic and fear grew. I just wanted to leave this nightmare. The room started growing intensely hotter, the odor of the coal becoming more overpowering, until finally, the screeching of the brakes stopped as the train came to a halt. A door slid open, unveiling the familiar sight of my backyard and the distant silhouette of my house. Despite the surreal nature, I acted impulsively, jumping out and sprinting towards home with all of my might. Every step felt like a blur of motion, yet I couldn't resist stealing a glance over my shoulder, watching the unsettling train fade into the distance, with its horn fading as it grew farther. Upon reaching my house and hastily entering, I found both my parents standing motionless, their eyes fixed on me with a creepy grin. "Mom? Dad?" I questioned as I approached them. Their smiles stretched wider, more malevolent, and, in unison, they uttered, "It's not your time yet, Gabriel." Then, in an instant, I found myself rising from my bed, jolting awake. Sweat soaked my body, my heart racing. It took me a while to realize it was all just a dream. However, in the next moment, I heard the distant sound of that train horn, serving as a haunting reminder of the very real experience I had just encountered.